The galaxy had never seen anything like this before. A fleet of the most feared hunters in existence, known across star systems as the galaxy's elite, emerged from hyperspace above Earth. They were beings of terrifying reputation, warriors who had conquered countless civilizations. Their ships gleamed like shards of ice under distant starlight, each vessel bristling with weapons that could erase planets from existence. Every civilization that had encountered them whispered stories of destruction and terror. Now they had set their sights on Earth, a planet many considered primitive, barely capable of interstellar defense. From the surface of Earth, the arrival of these hunters caused waves of fear and panic. Governments around the world watched from their command centers as the ships loomed in orbit, their sheer size and power making even the largest cities on Earth seem insignificant. The people had no idea how their planet could survive what was coming. Most expected doom. Yet among humanity, there were those who did not panic. Those who had known that the galaxy had underestimated them. For centuries, high above Earth, in a hidden orbital command station shielded from enemy sensors, Lieutenant Celine Arclight prepared herself. Celine was not like other humans. She had been trained in the art of hunting, combat, and strategy from a very young age. Her skills were beyond what the galaxy could imagine a human capable of. She moved with calm precision as she checked her ship, the Eclipse, a vessel custom-designed to outmatch even the most advanced alien technologies. Every system, every weapon, and every maneuver had been tested and perfected for this day. She stared out at the incoming fleet, her eyes sharp and unflinching. The elite hunters believed themselves the apex predators of the universe. They thought humans were nothing more than weak, unpredictable prey, but Celine knew the truth. Humans were survivors, but more than that, they were unpredictable, clever, and capable of extraordinary acts when pushed to the brink. She tightened her grip on the controls of her ship, feeling the hum of its power beneath her fingers. A sudden transmission interrupted her focus. The holographic screen lit up with the face of Admiral Rhea, leader of Earth's Secret Defense Council. "Celine," the Admiral said, her tone steady but urgent, "they've arrived. The fleet is entering orbit."
"You know what to do." Celine nodded.
"I've trained for this my whole life," she replied. "They will not see me coming." The Admiral gave a brief nod before the transmission ended. Celine turned back to the viewport. The fleet was massive, stretching across kilometers of space. The hunters' ships were not only numerous, but incredibly advanced. Their weapons glowed ominously, and their movements were coordinated with lethal precision. Many civilizations had fallen to these warriors, and Earth could easily be the next. Yet Celine felt no fear. Instead, she felt a surge of determination. Humanity was underestimated, and underestimation was a weapon. She could use it. With a deep breath, she initiated the launch sequence. The Eclipse rose from the orbital station with silent grace, slipping past detection fields designed to hide her from the elite hunter's sensors. As she approached the fleet, Celine activated the ship's stealth systems. Her ship shimmered and disappeared from sight, moving like a shadow among the stars. The elite hunters continued their approach, unaware of the threat that was already moving among them. Celine studied their formation carefully. Each movement, each pattern, each seemingly random maneuver of the hunter's fleet revealed weakness. Every hunter had a habit, a flaw in their tactics, something she could exploit. Her first target was a scouting vessel, a sleek ship designed to spot resistance and relay information. It was fast, but not fast enough. Celine fired a series of precision shots, disabling its engines and forcing it to drift uselessly in space. She observed the reaction from the larger ships. A ripple of attention passed through the fleet. They had noticed the anomaly, but they did not know what it was, or where it had come from. Celine smiled slightly beneath her helmet. This was only the beginning. She darted between larger ships, using her speed and knowledge of the fleet's formation to strike where they were weakest. She did not fire blindly. Each attack was deliberate, calculated to create confusion. Communications began to falter among the hunters. Their first casualty was a warning they did not expect. Humans were not defenseless, and they were not prey to be hunted. From the flagship of the fleet, a towering figure watched Celine's attacks. Commander Crix, one of the galaxy's deadliest hunters, narrowed his eyes.
"What is this human?" he growled. "She anticipates our moves. That is impossible."
No human has ever survived a fleet like this. Celine continued her assault, moving with unmatched precision. Her attacks were not just physical, they were psychological. She was demonstrating a pattern, teaching a lesson. Humans were not only dangerous, but they were unpredictable. Each time she disabled a ship, she left it intact enough for the crew to survive and relay the story. Fear would spread quickly. Fear of the human they could not catch. On Earth, people watched the battle unfold from hidden command centers. News of the fleet's arrival was censored for public safety, but military strategists and scientists followed every move of the eclipse. They saw what Celine had already known. Human skill, creativity, and adaptability were more powerful than raw technology. It was a moment that would be remembered forever. The first time a human had stood alone against the galaxy's elite and prevailed in the opening strikes. Despite the early victories, Celine knew this was far from over. The elite hunters would not let one human disrupt their mission so easily. They would regroup, study her tactics, and adapt. But she was ready for that. Her mind was always one step ahead, planning for contingencies, imagining scenarios no other human or alien could conceive. Her next target was a command frigate, slightly larger than the scouting vessel but still far below the flagship in firepower. Celine approached from an angle that put her out of the hunter's immediate line of sight. She used the ship's environment, debris fields, energy flares, and gravitational distortions to mask her presence. With careful timing, she fired an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the frigate's shield systems, then followed with precise strikes to the engines. The ship spun helplessly, a silent testament to human ingenuity. As the battle raged in orbit, Celine reflected on what this meant for humanity. For too long, humans had been underestimated. Civilizations across the galaxy had dismissed them as primitive and fragile. But in the past decades, Earth had advanced quietly, building strategies, technologies, and defenses that no alien could anticipate. The galaxy believed itself to be the apex of evolution, but it had forgotten one vital element. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and resilient. A warning came through from one of the surviving elite ships, hailing the fleet. "We face a human. She is unlike any other. Proceed with caution. She may be intelligent, but we are the hunters. She cannot survive." Celine heard this through the comms of her own ship, a soft smile on her face.
"Let them think they were in control."
Let them underestimate her. That arrogance was their weakness. Hours passed as Celine moved through the fleet like a shadow. Ships fell, engines flamed, and chaos spread among the elite hunters. And yet she never lost focus, never acted recklessly. Every move was calculated, every strike deliberate. She was not just fighting to defend Earth. She was sending a message to the galaxy. Humans were not prey, and Earth was not a target. As the first day of battle drew to a close, Celine returned to a high orbit above Earth, her ship undamaged but filled with the remnants of the destroyed alien vessels she had left behind. She allowed herself a moment to breathe. The galaxy would remember today, and the elite hunters would reconsider the reputation of humanity. Below her, Earth continued its quiet orbit, unaware of the scale of what had just happened. Humanity had survived the first wave of the deadliest hunters in the galaxy. They had watched, through eyes and sensors, as one human had faced what was thought to be impossible, and emerged victorious. Celine stood on the bridge of the eclipse, gazing at the stars. This was only the beginning. The galaxy's elite hunters were proud, arrogant, and relentless. They would return, stronger and more determined. But so would humanity. And Selene, a single human hunter, would be ready. Her mind was already planning the next moves, the next strategies, the next battles. She was not just fighting for Earth. She was fighting to prove that humans, underestimated and dismissed, could not only survive but dominate. And as she looked out into the dark expanse of space, Selene knew one truth. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not defenseless. And humanity was not prey. Humanity had sent its ultimate hunter, and she had begun the hunt. The elite hunters would learn soon enough that in the unpredictable chaos of the universe, humans were apex predators, and Lieutenant Selene Arclight was the proof. The galaxy's elite hunters were not accustomed to defeat. Their arrogance had carried them across systems, leaving entire civilizations in ruins. And yet, here was one human, dismantling their fleet piece by piece. As the sun's reflection glinted off the metal of her ship, Selene Arclight's eclipse slipped through the gaps of the fleet, striking with precision. Her every movement was deliberate, her mind calculating several steps ahead of her enemies. The hunters, initially stunned, were beginning to regroup. The early chaos of losing several ships had shaken their confidence, but it had not broken it. Commander Crix, the tactical genius of the fleet, barked orders with his deep, resonant voice that seemed to shake even the strongest hulls. "Surround her! She cannot escape. She is only human." Selene anticipated this. She had studied the hunters' tactics for years. Their formation patterns were predictable, their strikes precise but rigid. Flexibility, unpredictability, and intuition were what humans excelled at. She smiled faintly under her helmet as she weaved through their fleet, darting from shadow to shadow, using energy fields and debris to remain undetected. Each time the hunters thought they were closing in, she would vanish into the void like a phantom. Her first real strike of the day came against a heavy cruiser. The ship was a behemoth, armed to the teeth with plasma cannons and energy shields. Most species would have hesitated, but Selene had calculated the approach perfectly. She maneuvered Eclipse beneath the cruiser, avoiding its main firing arcs. A pulse from her ship's electromagnetic disruptor hit the cruiser's shield systems, leaving them vulnerable. Within seconds, precision torpedoes disabled the engines, leaving the cruiser drifting helplessly. Selene did not destroy it entirely. Instead, she left the ship as a warning, a message floating silently in space. Humanity was here, and humanity could fight back. She knew the survivors would relay this information across the fleet, sowing doubt and fear. Fear was a weapon humans wielded better than any laser cannon. In the flagship, Crix's frustration was palpable. "A human. She anticipates every move," he growled. "Adapt!"
"She cannot be allowed to continue. Orders were transmitted at light speed, but Selene was already ahead."
She had anticipated this response. The second wave of hunters came at her in synchronized attack patterns. Selene used her ship's cloaking and agility to weave between them, striking at engines, communication arrays, and weapon systems. Her attacks were surgical, not indiscriminate. The galaxy's elite were formidable, but their reliance on coordination and superior firepower made them predictable. One flaw in their formation, one gap, and Selene exploited it. In the chaos, a smaller scout ship tried to flank her from above. Its pilot was fast, but Selene's reflexes were faster. She twisted Eclipse in a sharp roll, using the scout's momentum against it. With a precise shot, she disabled its thrusters. The ship spun uncontrollably, becoming another message for the fleet. Humans could turn their strength against them. Despite the success, Selene did not linger. She knew the elite hunters would adapt quickly, and she had no desire to be caught in a trap. Moving deeper into the fleet, she began to observe patterns, noting which commanders were overconfident, which ships were slower, and which formations were vulnerable. Each piece of knowledge was a weapon. The galaxy's elite had underestimated humans, and she intended to exploit every mistake. Meanwhile, Across Earth, scientists monitored her progress with bated breath. They watched as one human defied what every intelligence report had predicted. The data streamed in, shields failing, weapons disabled, communications disrupted, and morale crumbling. It was not just a victory in battle. It was proof that humanity was not primitive, that humans were capable of extraordinary things when pushed to the brink. Back in the battle, Celine's attention shifted to a massive assault ship leading a formation. This ship was heavily armored, its hull reinforced with energy-absorbing materials. Most species would have avoided it, but Celine had calculated a method. She would use the environment itself as a weapon. She maneuvered a clips near a dense asteroid field, baiting the assault ship to follow.
Its large size and slower maneuverability made it susceptible.
When it pursued her, Celine activated the field's gravitational pulse, sending the ship careening into a cluster of massive asteroids. The impact disabled most of its systems without a single shot fired directly at it. Her ingenuity began to create fear that was not just tactical but psychological. The elite hunters had never faced an opponent who turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. Even their most experienced commanders whispered among themselves, doubting their calculations. Humans were supposed to be weak, and yet here was one shaping the fight like an artist. Crix's frustration grew. He had anticipated cunning opponents before, but this human surpassed all predictions. His orders became more aggressive, more desperate. The fleet began to split into smaller groups to corner her, but Celine anticipated this too. With every maneuver, she created chaos, forcing the hunters to make mistakes she would exploit. The turning point came when Celine detected a group of elite strike vessels moving to surround her. These were the fastest and most lethal ships in the fleet, designed for precision kills. Most species would have been terrified, but she did not hesitate. Using a combination of stealth, speed, and the unpredictable nature of human tactics, she led the strike vessels into a narrow energy field between two dying stars. The gravitational forces pulled the ships apart before they could fire a single effective shot. Celine emerged from the field unscathed, her ship gliding silently in space. She had not only survived, but turned the enemy's strength against them. Her confidence grew, but she remained focused. She knew the galaxy's elite would not stop. They would adapt, evolve, and come at her with even greater force. She needed to be ready for them. As she moved through the remnants of the fleet, Celine noticed the subtle signs of fear spreading. The once arrogant hunters now hesitated, doubted, and second-guessed their strategies. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they were confronted with an opponent who was not just powerful, but unpredictable. From Earth, the impact of her actions began to ripple through the human population. Though the public did not yet know the full scale, scientists and military leaders celebrated quietly. Humanity had survived the first major engagement with one of the deadliest forces in the galaxy. Hope, long buried beneath fear of the unknown cosmos, began to grow. Despite the victories, Celine remained vigilant. She knew the elite hunters were still dangerous, and this was only the beginning. Every destroyed ship, every disabled fleet element brought new challenges. Reinforcements would arrive, and the command structures she had disrupted would attempt to reorganize. But Celine had one advantage that no alien force could replicate: human ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability. Her next objective was clear: strike at the command core of the fleet. It was risky, but if she succeeded, the elite hunters would lose coordination, morale would crumble, and humanity's position in the galaxy would be secured. Using her advanced sensors, she began mapping the fleet's central command, noting every patrol, every shield generator, and every weak point. Hours turned into a day, and the battle continued. Celine moved like a ghost through the fleet, dismantling, disabling, and outmaneuvering her enemies. She did not seek glory. She sought victory for Earth. Every move was precise, every decision calculated. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and she intended to prove that humans were not only capable of survival, they were apex predators in their own right. As the first day of the larger conflict drew to a close, Selene found herself near the flagship. It loomed larger than any other ship, its massive form a symbol of the hunter's power. Sensors indicated heavy defenses and advanced weaponry, but Selene did not hesitate. She studied the patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, knowing that a single misstep could cost her life and the fate of Earth. Finally, she prepared her approach. Her ship slipped between enemy patrols using shadows and debris for cover. With careful timing, she disabled a portion of the flagship's shield generators, creating an opening. A single strike from her torpedo pods hit precisely where intended, sending sparks across the surface and shaking the massive vessel. The hunters aboard the flagship were shocked. No human had ever dared approach, let alone strike at the heart of their command. The message was clear. Humans were not defenseless, and this one human was capable of challenging even the mightiest of their kind. Selene pulled back, allowing the flagship to recover while she analyzed the next step. The first phase of her plan had succeeded. She had disrupted the fleet, instilled fear, and proved humanity's resilience. But she knew the hardest battles were yet to come. Commander Crix and his elite would adapt, and the galaxy would witness a confrontation unlike any before. As she floated in orbit above Earth, looking at the tiny blue planet below, Selene allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and even mocked across the stars. Yet here she was, a single human standing against the galaxy's most elite hunters, and she had begun the process of turning the tide. The elite hunters would return, stronger and more prepared, but they would never be able to predict humans, not truly. And that unpredictability, that spark of ingenuity, was humanity's greatest weapon. Selene knew that as long as she drew breath, the galaxy would learn one undeniable truth. Earth does not surrender, and humans do not bow. The hunt had only just begun, and Selene was ready. The galaxy's elite hunters were not accustomed to losing. Yet, after the first day of battle, confusion and fear rippled through their ranks. Ships had been disabled, engines destroyed, and entire formations broken apart by a single human pilot. Commander Crix paced across the command bridge of the flagship, his massive claws tapping impatiently against the floor. "She cannot be human," he growled.
She predicts every move, anticipates every attack. No human could survive like this. He was wrong.
Selene Arclight was human. She had trained her entire life for this moment, and she had learned what no alien could comprehend. Humans were unpredictable. They adapted, improvised, and thrived under pressure. As the second day of conflict began, Crix called upon reinforcements. From the edges of the galaxy, ships came rushing, the largest armada Selene had ever seen. Hundreds of vessels, each one more heavily armed than the last, surged toward Earth. Their intent was clear: overwhelm the lone human hunter and reclaim control of the battle. Selene had anticipated this. She watched the incoming fleet on her advanced HUD, her calm eyes tracing the paths of every ship. They were moving too quickly, too predictably, and she had spent years learning to exploit precisely such mistakes. She adjusted the controls of Eclipse, her ship responding like an extension of her own body. This battle was no longer about survival. It was about sending a message. The galaxy had assumed humans were weak, but she would prove them wrong. Her first strike was against the lead reinforcement squadron. Selene used her knowledge of their standard engagement patterns to her advantage. The squadron moved in formation, confident that sheer numbers would crush her. She activated her ship's advanced cloaking system, vanishing from sight. As the squadron passed, she unleashed a series of torpedoes at critical engine points. Explosions tore through the formation, and the squadron's coordinated attack collapsed into chaos. The elite hunters were beginning to realize the gravity of their situation. Their fleet, the most elite in the galaxy, was being systematically dismantled by a single human pilot. Panic spread among their ranks, subtle but dangerous. Even the strongest hunters hesitated now, second-guessing their orders. Selene did not stop. Using the chaos she had created, She moved deeper into the armada, striking at supply vessels and communication ships. These were not just attacks, they were strategic lessons. The human had studied them, understood them, and now was demonstrating humanity's greatest strength: adaptability. On board the flagship, Commander Crix's fury grew. "She is not just skilled," he hissed. "She is intelligent. She thinks like us, anticipates us."
He slammed a claw against the console.
"Send the strike teams. Surround her. End this." The strike teams moved, but Celine was ready. She had anticipated such desperation. Moving like a phantom, she led them into a narrow asteroid belt, using the gravitational pull to disrupt their formations. One by one, the strike team's ships were damaged, their shields failing under environmental hazards they had not accounted for. She did not even have to fire a single shot directly at most of them. The psychological effect on the elite hunters was immense. No alien had ever used the battlefield itself as a weapon. Their arrogance was faltering, replaced by fear and confusion. Celine knew that once fear spread, control of the fleet would begin to crumble. Still, Celine faced her most dangerous challenge yet. The combined elite commanders of the Armada had begun coordinating directly. These were the greatest minds of the Hunters Guild, beings who had outsmarted countless species. They were planning to trap her, to create a kill zone from which no human could escape. Celine's ship moved through space with a grace that was almost impossible to follow. She studied their formations, identifying a small window in their plan, a single flaw hidden within the coordinated strike patterns. Timing and precision would be everything. She could feel her pulse steady, her mind clear. Humans thrived when pushed to their limits. And this was one such moment. With perfect timing, she struck. Using a combination of EMP pulses and targeted missile strikes, she disabled the primary engines of the Armada's center command vessels. Confusion erupted. Ships collided, shields failed, and chaos spread faster than any coordinated assault could respond. The elite commanders were forced to retreat temporarily, regrouping to reassess the threat. Celine did not pause to celebrate. She moved quickly, knowing that the elite hunters would adapt. She continued her attacks, taking out secondary command ships, disrupting supply lines, and creating fear at every level. Her strikes were surgical, her understanding of alien psychology as critical as her ship's weapons. As the day progressed, the battle extended across kilometers of space. Celine moved like a shadow, her ship a blur of light and motion. The elite hunters, who had once believed themselves unstoppable, now hesitated at every turn. Rumors of the human hunters spread through their communications. One human, alone, dismantling fleets, predicting every move, surviving every trap. It was unthinkable, but Celine did not underestimate her enemies. She knew the most dangerous moment was still ahead. Commander Crix had not yet revealed his trump card, Raxtor, the Devourer, a monstrous being revered across the galaxy as invincible. The mere mention of its name sent fear through countless worlds. Celine understood that confronting Raxtor would be the ultimate test of her skills. For now, she focused on survival and disruption. She used hit-and-run tactics, striking at key points, then retreating into the darkness of space. She forced the elite hunters to chase her, drawing them into traps she had meticulously prepared. Gravity fields, asteroid clusters, and energy storms became her allies, each attack a demonstration of human creativity. Hours turned into a day, and Celine's endurance was tested. The elite hunters adapted, learning from her patterns, but she adapted faster. Every action she had taken, every trap she had set, was calculated to keep them off balance. The human mind, capable of imagination and improvisation, proved far more unpredictable than the rigid calculations of the elite. The turning point came when Celine detected a new formation moving in from the edges of the system. These were not ordinary ships. They were experimental vessels, faster and more powerful than any she had faced. The elite hunters were committing their ultimate reinforcements to destroy her. Most would have panicked. Celine prepared meticulously. She had anticipated this escalation. Using the natural environment, the human pilot lured the experimental ships into a dense nebula. Sensors distorted, visibility dropped, and the ships struggled to maintain formation. Celine moved like a ghost through the fog, striking weak points and using gravitational anomalies to her advantage. Within hours, several of the experimental vessels were incapacitated, their advanced technology no match for human ingenuity. The psychological impact on the elite hunters reached its peak. The invincible armada was faltering, its numbers shrinking, and fear had begun to dominate the minds of even the strongest commanders. Celine realized that the battle was not just about destroying ships, it was about breaking the perception of invincibility. Humans could be underestimated, but never again dismissed. As the day ended, Celine allowed herself a brief pause. She floated in the darkness of space, surveying the battlefield. Many ships had been destroyed or disabled, and the remaining fleet was hesitant, cautious. The elite hunters were proud, ruthless, and intelligent, yet one human had forced them to retreat temporarily. She knew the next confrontation would be even more dangerous. Raxtor would soon enter the battle, bringing power and terror unmatched in the galaxy. But Celine was ready. Humans thrived under pressure, and unpredictability was their greatest weapon. On Earth, the significance of her victories began to sink in. Governments and civilians alike understood that humanity had faced the unthinkable and survived. Fear was replaced by awe, and hope began to grow. Humanity was no longer a passive species, waiting for destruction. It had risen as a force capable of defending itself and challenging even the greatest powers of the universe. Celine did not allow herself to dwell on glory. Her mind was focused, calculating every possible scenario. The elite hunters would not stop. Their arrogance would push them forward, and their next attacks would be even more dangerous. But humanity had one advantage they could not predict: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to act against impossible odds. As she moved her ship to a safe orbit, Celine considered the path ahead. The coming days would test her to the limit. She would face not only the elite hunters' fleet, but also their deadliest commander, Raxtor. Every decision, every maneuver, every calculation would matter. The galaxy had begun to see the truth. Humans were not prey. They were apex predators. Celine's resolve hardened. She would fight not just for survival, but for dominance. The elite hunters had underestimated humanity, and they would pay for it. When the ultimate battle came, the galaxy would witness a human proving what no species had thought possible. And somewhere deep in the fleet, the whispers began. One human had survived the impossible. She had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outlasted the greatest hunters in the galaxy. The hunt had just begun, and the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Celine looked out at the distant stars, feeling the weight of the galaxy's eyes upon her. The elite hunters would return, stronger and more determined. But one truth would remain unchanged. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and relentless. And Celine Arclight, humanity's ultimate hunter, was ready for whatever came next. The space around the dying star shimmered with energy, as if the cosmos itself had paused to witness what was about to unfold. Celine Arclight's ship Eclipse floated in the shadow of enormous alien warships, the last remaining vessels of the elite hunters' once mighty armada. Every move she had made so far had led to this moment. From the depths of the armada, a monstrous shape emerged. Raxtor, the Devourer, loomed larger than any ship Celine had ever seen. Its hull was alive with alien technology, glowing veins of energy pulsating across its surface. It moved with terrifying grace, and even from a distance its presence radiated power. Entire fleets had fallen to this being, their planets reduced to nothingness, and now it had come for her. Celine's heart did not race. She had trained for moments like this, every sense sharpened, every system on Eclipse optimized for precision. The galaxy had never seen a human face such a creature alone, and she intended to change that perception forever. Raxtor's first movement was deliberate. Massive energy cannons extended from its hull, preparing to sweep the field. It fired a warning salvo, scorching space with concentrated plasma. Selene rolled Eclipse to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast. The shockwave from the plasma struck a nearby asteroid, sending fragments spinning into the void. She used them as cover, weaving between debris with incredible agility. The Devourer's sensors were advanced, designed to track even the fastest ships. But Selene had anticipated this. Cloaking and adaptive maneuvering allowed her to slip through Raxtor's perception for crucial moments. She studied the beast, analyzing its firing patterns, shield cycles, and movement tendencies. Every attack she had executed against the Armada before this had been preparation for this encounter. Her first strike was subtle, but effective. Using a small torpedo aimed at a weak spot in Raxtor's armor, she created a localized overload. Sparks flared across the massive hull, a minor wound to the Devourer, but enough to draw its attention. Raxtor turned toward her, its massive eye-like sensor glowing, scanning for the human pilot who dared challenge it. The battle escalated quickly. Raxtor fired a barrage of plasma beams, the energy cutting through space with devastating force. Selene dodged and weaved, her ship's shields absorbing small impacts, while her thrusters adjusted in perfect harmony. Every movement was calculated. Every second mattered. She was not just fighting for survival, she was rewriting the rules of engagement between humans and the galaxy's deadliest hunters. Raxtor tried to anticipate her moves, adjusting its attack patterns mid-barrage. But Selene was human. Humans did not follow rigid calculations. They improvised, adapted, and turned unpredictability into advantage. She led the Devourer on a chase, weaving through gravitational anomalies near the star, forcing it to overcorrect and expend energy. As the Devourer struggled to adjust, Selene struck again. She targeted the energy conduits running along its hull, firing a sequence of torpedoes that hit precise junction points. Sparks and plasma erupted, and a section of Raxtor's hull briefly collapsed inward. For the first time, the legendary hunter had been visibly injured. Raxtor roared, a sound that echoed through the void. Its massive hull spun and fired in all directions, desperate to strike the elusive human. Selene barely evaded, her movements a blur of skill and instinct. Each near miss was a lesson in patience, teaching her the Devourer's limits and weaknesses. She knew this duel would not be won by brute force. It would be won by strategy, creativity, and mental endurance. The battlefield itself became a weapon. Selene used the star's magnetic field to her advantage, drawing Raxtor into zones of high-energy interference. Plasma storms surged across space, and lightning-like arcs struck the Devourer's hull, disrupting its energy flow. The ship staggered, massive energy veins flickering unpredictably. Even a being as powerful as Raxtor could not maintain perfect control under these conditions. Selene pushed Eclipse forward, closing the distance. She aimed for the core, the central nexus that powered Raxtor's systems. Every torpedo, every shot from her pulse cannons, was directed at disrupting its energy distribution. Sparks flew across the massive ship as minor explosions rocked its hull. The Devourer was fast, powerful, and terrifying, but Selene was precise, patient, and unpredictable. Hours seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. Time in the void of space was distorted, measured only by the rhythm of attacks and evasions. Selene moved with unmatched grace, her ship dodging plasma, gravitational anomalies, and collapsing debris. Every strike she delivered was a calculated risk, each maneuver a dance between life and death. Raxtor's attacks grew desperate. It began using energy pulses that destabilized the very space around it, attempting to crush her ship through gravitational manipulation. Selene countered by using the star's energy flows, slipping through channels of distorted space that even Raxtor could not fully predict. The Devourer's frustration became evident. It had never faced an opponent capable of exploiting the environment so efficiently. Then came a moment of opportunity. A massive energy surge from the dying star caused part of Raxtor's shields to flicker. Selene seized the moment. With perfect timing, she fired a concentrated pulse into the exposed section, penetrating deep into its core systems. Sparks and energy eruptions cascaded across the Devourer's massive frame. For the first time, it staggered visibly, its movements slowing as internal systems began failing. Raxtor let out a deafening roar, shaking nearby asteroids and sending waves of debris into motion. It was furious, powerful, and dangerous, but it was no longer invincible. Selene pressed the advantage, maneuvering Eclipse close to its hull. Using targeted torpedoes, she disabled several key conduits, each strike-precise, calculated and devastating. The battle had become a test of endurance. Selene's ship systems were pushed to their limits, but so was the Devourer. Energy arcs danced across its hull, engines faltered, and plasma vents exploded. The apex predator of the galaxy was being dismantled by a single human pilot who relied not on sheer size or firepower, but intelligence. As the duel reached its climax, Selene executed a final strategy. Using the magnetic fields around the star, she created a trajectory that forced Raxtor to overextend. Its massive body collided with high-energy debris, sustaining further damage. Selene seized the moment, firing a concentrated barrage at the Devourer's exposed core. Energy surged outward, cascading through the hull in a brilliant display of power. Raxtor let out one final ear-splitting roar before systems shut down. The massive ship now incapacitated. Selene floated in the void, her ship battered but intact, the victory complete. The galaxy's elite hunters had been defeated, not through overwhelming force, but through strategy, precision, and the ingenuity of one human. Silence settled across the battlefield. The remaining fleet, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Ships that had once been the terror of the stars fled, their arrogance replaced by fear. Selene knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had witnessed the power of humanity, and it would not forget. From Earth, the hidden command centers erupted in quiet celebration. Sensors showed the destruction of Raxtor, and humanity's defenders realized the magnitude of what had been achieved. One human had faced the galaxy's deadliest predator and emerged victorious. The implications were clear. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. Selene took a moment to observe the aftermath. The battlefield was a chaos of wreckage and energy trails, but her victory had sent a clear message. Humans could not be prey. They could think, adapt, and survive in ways the galaxy had never imagined. And a single human, equipped with skill, courage, and strategy, could challenge even the most formidable opponents in existence. Though the immediate battle was won, Selene's mind remained vigilant. She knew that the elite hunters would adapt, that other threats would emerge, and that the galaxy's perception of humanity would continue to be challenged. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of triumph. The stars around the dying sun glowed softly, reflecting off the remnants of the Devourer's hull. Selene gazed at the wreckage, knowing she had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity had proven itself not just capable of survival, but capable of triumph against insurmountable odds. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of accomplishment. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Humans were apex predators not because of size or strength, but because of ingenuity, courage, and an unpredictable spark that no algorithm could calculate. Selene Arclight's name would echo across star systems. She was more than a pilot. She was proof that humanity could rise against impossible odds. And the galaxy, having witnessed this duel, would never again underestimate the blue planet in the Milky Way. The battle of the Devourer was over, but the war for recognition, respect, and survival had only just begun. Selene's journey and humanity's rise among the stars was far from finished. Yet in that moment, as she drifted among the wreckage of the greatest hunter the galaxy had ever known, she allowed herself to feel the simple truth. Earth had sent her, and she had hunted them all. The remnants of the elite hunter's fleet drifted through space, broken, leaderless, and silent. Once, they had been the terror of countless civilizations, feared across galaxies for their ruthlessness and unmatched skill. Now they fled, humiliated by a single human pilot who had dared to defy them. Selene Arclight's victory over Raxtor, the Devourer, had reshaped the balance of power in the universe. Selene remained in orbit above Earth, her ship floating among the debris of destroyed alien vessels. The battle had been long, exhausting, and terrifying, but it had also proven something essential. Humanity was no longer prey. Humans were apex predators, clever, unpredictable, and relentless. From Earth, humanity watched quietly, carefully, as the last of the elite hunters disappeared into the void. Hidden command centers buzzed with activity, scientists and military leaders sharing reports, confirming what everyone had hoped but dared not believe. One human had faced the greatest hunters in the galaxy, and won. Selene initiated the communications link to the command council. The holographic projection of Admiral Rhea appeared, her face alight with pride and relief. "Selene, the fleet is retreating," she said softly. "You've done the impossible." Selena's expression remained calm, though a faint smile crossed her lips. "It's not over yet. They may return. They will adapt, and they will try again. But we've proven that they can be beaten. They can be outsmarted."
The Admiral nodded, and the galaxy has learned a lesson it will never forget.
Humanity is not to be underestimated. You have not only defended Earth, you have shown our strength to every civilization that will hear of this. But Selene turned back to the viewport, staring at the stars scattered across the void. Her victory was complete, but she knew the consequences would be far-reaching. The galaxy had changed, and so had humanity. For centuries, humans had been dismissed, ignored, and underestimated. Now, their name carried weight. Their ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were known, respected, and feared. The first signals of recognition came quickly. Nearby systems that had once ignored Earth now sent cautious messages of respect. Some offered alliances. Others observed from a distance, calculating whether humans were to be treated as friends or foes. Selene knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had finally noticed humanity, and no one could predict what would come next. Despite the monumental victory, Selene remained focused. Her ship required maintenance, and she needed time to analyze the battle, understand the weaknesses of the elite hunters, and prepare for any future threats. The galaxy's predators would not stay silent forever. They had underestimated humans once. They would not make that mistake again. Back on Earth, people celebrated quietly, though the world remained outwardly calm. The true scope of the battle and the human triumph was classified, known only to military leaders and select scientists. Yet in secret, stories began to spread. Tales of a lone human who had faced the galaxy's deadliest hunter and survived. Children whispered them to one another, imagining the fearless human who had turned the void of space into her hunting ground. Selena herself did not seek recognition or glory. She had trained her life to defend her planet, and she had done so, but she understood the impact of her actions. Humanity would carry this story forward, a symbol of resilience, courage, and intelligence. The galaxy had learned that humans could survive and thrive where others failed. In the aftermath, the elite hunters retreated to their distant systems, regrouping and reconsidering their assumptions. Their pride had been shattered. Raxtor, the monster that had destroyed countless fleets, had been bested by a human. Fear and respect replaced arrogance in the ranks of the elite. They knew that should they ever attempt to hunt Earth again, they would face an opponent far more formidable than they had imagined. Selene spent the following days surveying the battlefield. She recorded patterns, studied the remains of the Devourer's systems, and documented the strengths and weaknesses of the elite hunters. Her reports would guide humanity in the years to come, ensuring that Earth would never again be caught unprepared. The galaxy was watching, and humans needed to be ready for whatever might come next. Even in quiet moments, Celine reflected on what had happened. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and she realized how small Earth truly was in the vastness of space. Yet, for the first time, she understood that size and strength were not the only measures of power. Humans could survive, adapt, and dominate through intelligence, strategy, and courage. That realization filled her with quiet pride. She thought of her planet, of the people she had fought to protect. They had believed in her, and she had delivered. But she also knew that humanity had proven something more, that no species, no matter how advanced or terrifying, should ever underestimate the human spirit. Months passed, and the galaxy slowly began to accept the new reality. Humans were no longer seen as weak or insignificant. Across star systems, whispers spread. Earth had sent her hunter, and she had destroyed the galaxy's greatest predators. Civilizations that once viewed humans as curiosities now approached with caution, aware that intelligence, creativity, and courage could rival even the most advanced technology. Celine continued to train, refine her strategies, and prepare for the unknown. She knew that threats would come again, for the universe was full of ambition, conflict, and power struggles. But she was confident humanity had faced the impossible and survived. One human had faced the galaxy's apex predator and emerged victorious. That knowledge would guide future generations, ensuring that Earth would always have defenders capable of turning the tide. The story of the battle began to spread quietly among allies and enemies alike. The defeated elite hunters carried the tale back to their civilizations, sharing the story of the human who had outsmarted them, the human who had made them flee. Respect and fear followed every retelling. Celine had not only protected Earth, she had changed the galaxy's perception of humans forever. On Earth, Celine returned to a hero's welcome, though the public was kept unaware of the full scale of the events. In private, scientists and military leaders celebrated her success, recognizing the magnitude of her actions. They began planning for humanity's expansion into the stars, knowing that the galaxy would never again consider Earth defenseless. Celine herself remained humble. She had fought for her planet, for humanity, and for the belief that humans could stand against impossible odds. She knew the galaxy was vast and full of danger, but she also knew that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. One human could change the course of events, challenge the strongest predators, and redefine what it meant to survive in the cosmos. In the following months, humanity began to advance more boldly into space. New ships were designed, drawing on Celine's experiences. Training programs were expanded, emphasizing creativity, adaptability, and strategy. Every human knew that survival required more than strength. It required intelligence, unpredictability, and courage. Celine watched these developments with quiet satisfaction. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humans could not be underestimated. Her actions had ensured that Earth's place among the stars was secure. The elite hunters would never again view humanity as weak, and other civilizations would take note. Yet Celine knew that vigilance was essential. The galaxy was vast, and threats were endless. But she was ready. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now, with knowledge, courage, and determination, it could face any challenge. In quiet moments, Celine gazed at the stars, remembering the battle against Raxtor. She thought of the strategy, the danger, and the thrill of survival. She knew that her actions would inspire generations of humans to come, proving that one human could stand against the most powerful beings in the universe and prevail. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength. The elite hunters had fled, their pride shattered, and Earth had been defended by a human who was clever, brave, and unstoppable. Celine had not only survived, she had dominated, leaving an indelible mark on the stars. The galaxy would never forget that lesson. Humans were apex predators not because of sheer size or force, but because of their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. And as long as humans drew breath, they would continue to rise, adapt, and defend what was theirs. Selene Arclight became a symbol, a legend whispered across systems. Stories of her skill, strategy, and courage spread quietly, inspiring not only humans, but other civilizations as well. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Never underestimate humans. The elite hunters would not return lightly. They would plan, adapt, and seek vengeance. But the spark of humanity had been ignited. A single human had proven that courage, intelligence, and unpredictability could topple even the greatest of predators. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a new kind of apex, humans. Selene gazed at the Earth below, a tiny blue dot in the vast darkness of space. She knew that the planet she had protected would continue to grow, evolve, and rise among the stars. Humanity had survived the impossible, and now it would thrive. The story of the battle would be remembered for centuries, the tale of a lone human who faced the galaxy's deadliest hunter and emerged victorious. Selene Arclight had shown the universe what humans were capable of, and her name would echo in the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a hunter, and Earth had sent her.